Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of In the Hole and Socks type thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes, episode 125. This is also episode 27 of Socks type thing as we do the combo podcast again. 27, it's got to be Lucas Giolito, isn't it? I mean, that's the jersey, White Sox jersey history correlation that we always put with these episodes.
Yeah, I can't think of that's who I had in my head, but I didn't look. I can't think of another 27.
Jeff Blum?
Well, I mean, I realized that it was a very timely home run he hit. But
it was
the
quite
fact that
timely in 2005.
The fact that he made it onto a statue to commemorate the World Series is possibly one of the greatest over exaggerations of a player's role in the history of baseball.
Jeff Blum will be immortalized in statue form for the rest of time.
Blum and Governor Jim Thompson,
yes,
immortalized forever at the Guaranteed Rate Stadium.
You guys like your fucking statues over there, but we have another jam-packed episode for you. We've got 5 teams under 500 once again. The Giants almost had 500, and then they lost this afternoon, so they're one game below 500. We almost had one team at least in the 500 range. Unfortunately, that is not occurring. We've got plenty of Giants, Tigers, Cubs, some Sox. We might have an asshole of the week worked in there someplace. We've got a badass of the week, of one of our more interesting I think it's interesting every week, but this is going to be a really interesting conversation who we come up with for the official badass of the week, because there are some historic performances happening both sides of Chicago. Actually, I've got some shit you couldn't make up, and of course we have another aesthetics, much to your chagrin. They keep churning out these Nike City Connect jerseys, and I feel compelled we need to talk about it every fucking time. We're falling into their trap, but I'm doing it.
It's interesting because, like, we've had to do one every week. It feels more aggressive this season thus far than it has been in seasons past.
It is very aggressive. There's still one left for the entire season, I believe. I think there's one coming up in June at some point, but so we'll be sure to talk about that, but we will get to that at the end of the show. I think we might as well go ahead and jump into the news.
Well, I was hopeful that this conversation was not going to be that the Giants reached 500, that the Giants were one game over 500.
It could have been over 500 today.
Sweep of the Twinkies, but instead of that, they lost in, I think it was like 4-1.
I think it was 7-1.
Oh, was it 7-1? Okay,
last time.
Yeah. So there you go. They lost in unceremonious fashion. We thought we were going to be popping the champagne here for actually having a team back at the 500 or over.
Start an episode with one of our 5 teams over 500.
Yeah, but that's not the case. But the Giants have been playing some pretty good baseball, and once considered the best division in baseball, the NL West. I mean, definitely over the last couple of years with the Giants, Padres, and Dodgers there. At one game under 500, the Giants only find themselves 6.5 games out with a lot of baseball to play, and they are playing a lot better. Part of the story is I think he's finally getting back into MLB mode, but Michael Conforto has come on like a gangbuster, and suddenly he's got 10 homers. I was actually going to talk like 2 episodes ago on how he's really underperformed. His OPS plus at that point was like 78 or something. It's 110 now.
Okay.
So he's raised that substantially over the last 2 weeks.
Did he not play at all last year? I seem
nothing
to
at all last year.
So it's not too surprising that it would take him a while to get back in the swing of things, so to speak.
Literally.
And see what I did there?
Yeah, you're amazing. How do you do it?
Professional podcasting.
But everything right now, 7-3 in their last 10. That's an easy stat to look up on any standing. Everything's trending in the right direction at
That's
the moment.
second in their division, though. I noticed the Arizona Diamondbacks are 8-2 in their last 10, which is kind of shocking.
They are still they still continue to perform, the Diamondbacks, which
that's not what I was expecting.
And the Padres continue to fail. So
yeah, I think the Padres are 4 below 500 now, which is shocking considering I keep picking them to either win or at least go to the World Series every year.
Yes, they are 3-7 in their last 10, but they have won 2 in a
Yikes.
row. They're 3-7 in their last 10 with 2 wins in a row.
Wow.
That's not good. So, but anyway, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from this team. They look like they're starting to, they're getting good. They're getting, whenever you get good pitching, if you can just get decent hitting, usually it all works out for you. So, I mean, that's what's happening right now for the Giants. I really don't expect them to be in the playoffs this year, but again, I want to be able to sit down and enjoy watching a baseball game. While losses aren't necessarily enjoyable, there are good losses and bad losses from a viewing standpoint.
We've actually brought this up a couple times already this year. This is what our teams have brought us to. It's like, we're not expecting a ton of wins from anybody, but just make the games watchable and enjoyable to some extent. And as sad as that is, if we can get that from our pathetic teams, then we're happy. So
yeah, that's like the theme of this podcast is, are they watchable losses?
It's unreal. Like, yeah, we have expanded over the years. We were a blog since 2011. We covered 3 teams at that point, just Cubs, Sox, and Tigers. We've expanded to the Giants and then eventually the A's. But you'd think as we expand, we could have at least one good team at some point. And we are struggling to even get to that. So
our teams are all teases, man.
It's amazing. It's all happening at the same time. So
yeah,
at least you and I can empathize.
Yeah, I would though prefer. I would really prefer one of us to have something trending in a better direction that we actually believe, though. That's the other thing.
Well,
like the Cubs, and we're going to get to that soon.
Oh, we will.
But the Cubs, like, you didn't really believe what you had seen, and
I don't believe what I just saw.
And it's starting to work out in you. You were correct. I was correct, unfortunately. So, like, again, like, it's one thing for your teams to be winning, but, like, is it sustainable?
Yeah.
And we'll also get to that within the Sox portion of this.
Yeah, we'll get to that with everybody. That's the theme of the show for sure.
But that's all I got for my Giants at this point in time. If you'd like to move over to the Motor City.
Yeah, my Tigers haven't had quite the week I was hoping for. Not quite as good a week as they've been having previously in May. They split a series against Pittsburgh in Detroit, which is really frustrating because they won the first game 4-0. Had Eduardo Rodriguez coming to the mound, who had been one of the best pitchers in the American League until that point. It seemed like an easy victory, and they lost 8-0. It's just like, what the fuck just happened? That was followed by a disappointing but a competitive series in Washington, where they lost lost 2 out of 3. Washington's not a good team. They're probably a little better than what the record says, but that was a frustrating series that I think the Tigers could have done a lot better in. Now they're in Kansas City. Right now it's a split series. The rubber match is tonight in about 20 minutes. We got to rush through this episode.
Yeah, let's get going, man.
We've got the Cubs and Tigers coming out at the same time. Again, like all weekend, this whole week, Cubs and Tigers have played at the exact same time, which is just
that kind of blows.
Yeah, it never happens. I don't know why it's happening so much. So my 2 favorite teams are playing right over the top of each other. So I just wait for one to shit the bed and switch the channel to the other one, I guess. That's been my strategy. But so yeah, I was hoping they wouldn't struggle with the Royals either. But I mean, the game they won the other night in extra innings, 8-5, that was that was an epic battle. It felt like a playoff game between two really bad teams, but every pitch counted in that one. It was pretty crazy. But it was really another disappointing start from Michael Lorenzen, who I had sung the praises of in the previous episode for controlling the strike zone, as is their mantra. He did nothing of the sort against the Royals, which was rather odd. But Eduardo Rodriguez going last night. He's doesn't look like his former self. That's 2 starts in a row where he's kind of shit in the bed, which is surprising. But the Tigers bats, they're not controlling the strike zone on that side of the ball either. They struck out 12 times last night to some guy named Michael Mayers from the Royals.
Isn't he a musician? Oh, that's John Mayer. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so what they were doing throughout the month of May that was encouraged was controlling the strike zone. That has evaporated somehow, and they need to get back to that. But the real issue, and we all knew it was coming, and shouldn't be surprised. I don't think anyone is.
I'm gonna be surprised. Go ahead.
It is what I'm going to call the Miguel Cabrera situation, the brewing situation there. It's kind of like the Bonnie situation from Pulp Fiction. You have to understand what an explosive situation this is. The moment he signed his $8 million, I think it's $248 million deal, or 8-year, $248 million. We knew this last year, maybe longer, would be a painful march to the end. And it is proving to be so. It's to the point where Cabrera is essentially playing every third day at this point. They're kind of hiding him as much as they can because he's batting 181 on the season. He has 2 runs scored, 4 RBI, 0 home runs, of course. I think his OPS plus is 32.
Holy
which
shit!
Is just not.
That's not Miguel Cabrera. I'll tell you that much.
What do you do though? Like their hands are tied. Once he started this season and started the farewell tour, and there were more developments in that regard that I'll mention in a bit. But you can't they're not DFAing him. You can't do that to a Hall of Famer. You can't do that to the best right-handed hitter of our generation potentially. He has earned the respect and earned the right to do what he wants, but it's almost like he needs to decide he should stop at some point because especially with last night's game, of course he comes up in the one situation where the Tigers had the best chance to score, bases loaded, 2 outs. He's batting in the 7 hole. So they're trying to bury him there, but of course, he comes up to bat, and you just know he's just going to ground out. That's exactly what happened. That was their one big chance. They ended up losing 4-1. It's not to guarantee that anyone else could have come up and gotten the base hit, but it's just kind of a fait accompli when you see him coming to the plate now. He doesn't have the bat speed. It's not that he's not brilliant and not one of the most talented players you've ever seen. He just doesn't have the physical skills anymore. So it's either going to take an injury or him just deciding I can't embarrass my team. I can't hurt my team like this anymore. It's not going to come from management side. And I have mixed feelings about that. Like if they were ruthless pricks, which they should be, this is a win and lose business. They would tell him we're sitting you. We can't do this anymore. But on the human side of things, I think that would be so wrong to do that to somebody that's so great. So that's why I'm just calling it the Cabrera situation. It's not going to resolve itself unless he somehow resolves it or somehow an injury does. But the question would be, is he blocking anybody from being on the roster? Potentially, there's Justin Henry Malloy who could be called up. I'm not sure he's really banging down the door. He's so young, and it's just going to get more and more awkward as it already has. So I don't know how it's going to get resolved. It bums me out because I used to be so excited to see him come to the plate, and it's just like it's so cringy now. Along those lines, cringiness. The Miguel Cabrera victory lap, the Memorial Tour, continued in Washington this weekend, where the growing line of awkward gifts is continuing, where we've chronicled the cheesehead in Milwaukee.
I like the donations.
Yeah, the brick from Baltimore. The donations are great to his charitable organization, but it was very odd that the Cardinals chose to give exactly $1,500 less than the Brewers did the previous week to that foundation. It was just kind of awkward. But the Nationals gave him a couple items, including a rocking chair with his number 24 emblazoned across the top.
Wow, that's not like a fucking little jab.
Yeah, is that Jesus. A backhanded compliment? Like, here you go. Here's your rocking chair.
Here you go, Pops.
I think he always takes it in stride. I think it was cool. I think, again, it's always the thought that counts.
Yeah, well, he's got a great sense of humor too.
He does.
So I'm sure he
got
a kick out of it.
I mean, I've been making fun of these gifts from the beginning, but I think they are getting rather cringy at times. So we'll see how this continues. But again, that's another reason why, they can't just call a halt to the end of the road for Miggy, like just prematurely. That he's on this cool tour, which I think he should be recognized by all these places, even if they make it a bit awkward. I love the gesture, but it's getting to the point where, man, something's coming to a head. And if the Tigers, second place Tigers in the AL Central, if they are
anyone's division,
yeah, if they are in contention, the longer they are in contention, the more awkward this gets. So as bizarre as the situation is, and as mediocre as the Tigers really are, they could have a chance to win this division if they got contributions from their entire 26-man roster. And that's just not the case right now.
Well, we'll see what happens this weekend. Probably be in third or fourth place after the weekend. So
yeah, your bold proclamations that we hear every time when the Tigers play the White Sox, that you will have a sweep at hand.
Well, I know Dylan Cease will be pitching one of the games, so that's a win.
Well, Michael Kopech is not, which we'll get to him in a bit. But yeah, that's it. I was thinking we might miss Cease, but he's pitching probably the final game of the series.
Yep.
All right. You mapped this all out already. I can see you're fired up about it. But we'll get to your White Sox in a little bit. Before we go to the south side of Chicago, I'm going to transition over to the Chicago Cubs.
Red hot.
Over the last 30 days, you could call them the worst team in baseball. Factually, they are not. The Oakland A's, who we'll get to eventually, are by far the worst team in baseball.
Yes.
I don't consider them a Major League Baseball team, considering they're choosing not to be competitive at a Major League level. So I'm going to call the Cubs the worst team in baseball over the last 30 days. After a 12-8 start to the season, very encouraging. Had many Cubs fans talking about playoffs and talking about the rebuild is complete. That is come off the rails. It is after last night's victory, which I'll get to in a little bit. They're still 9-18 since that 12-8 start, and there's lots of reasons for that. Really, a lot of it comes down to the bullpen is just failing in every high leverage situation they get into. And Jed Hoyer actually addressed that issue and said it was
his fault.
That's on me, was his quote, which is admirable. And it's true too. The Theo and co, as I've called them over the previous decade, including Jed Hoyer, have been pretty damn good at assembling a competent bullpen through myriad efforts, whether it's free agency or reclamation projects or through the farm system. They can usually put together a decent bullpen, and they thought they did that again by adding Brad Boxberger and Michael Fulmer, who I actually was fired up that they had signed. have just proven not to be reliable in those situations. Boxberger's actually hurt now, and Fulmer, he actually had a good outing last night, but that was in a very low leverage situation, which he's usually pretty damn good in. It's just the high leverage is crushing them. So I guess it's admirable that Hoyer is putting it on him, and he's got the job security to deal with it. So
hopefully he doesn't pull a Hahn and disappear now.
Well, that's yeah.
I still haven't found them.
The other issues that I brought up preseason, and it's part of why, as you mentioned before, even with a 12-8 start, I was a little skeptical of, because the way they built the roster was, I felt a lot of smoke and mirrors. I called it confusing activity with accomplishment by signing such free agents as Eric Hosmer, who has now been DFA'd officially.
See ya.
That was a fairly easy decision at this point, considering the next to no production he's given him, and he was only getting paid by the Cubs the league minimum because his salary is already being paid by the Padres. So they paid him to go away. I think that should have been a sign to Jed Hoyer that you probably shouldn't even waste your time with him. The confounding issue with that I brought up preseason was they signed Trey Mancini to play first base as well. So I didn't understand. Yeah. I like, even though Mancini hasn't been terrific, I like that idea at least, and maybe have someone like Matt Mervis be on the roster to start the season, which many people have been clamoring for over the last few weeks as he was crushing it in the minors. Finally got called up. Has not really done as much as you would have hoped. He did have a home run last night, I believe, but it just didn't make any sense, at least in that specific first base situation, to have Hosmer. I think they signed Mancini after they had Hosmer. So it's almost like they said they picked up Hosmer just because it was, dirt cheap and, it wasn't going to cost them much, but it created a situation for them that they didn't need to deal with. Now that is taking care of itself. I think the next move that may or may not take care of itself would be Nick Madrigal, who is just not hitting the ball consistently enough. He's never hit with power. He is in for defense essentially, but he's taking away at bats from Patrick Wisdom at this point. So, and I'd much rather have Wisdom come up to the plate in key situations than Nick Madrigal. So this is all a situation that Jed Hoyer created, and he's taken the blame for it, but that's all well and good. But Cubs and Cubs fans are looking for wins and losses. They are looking for more wins than losses, and that is not what they have seen over the last month. Of course, on the positive side.
I can't wait to hear this.
Well, it is impossible to not recognize the Herculean feats that we have seen out of one Christopher Morel. And that will bring us to it's going to be an interesting discussion. It's not a slam dunk, but that's going to transition us over to our badass of the week. I sent you a list over there. I kind of, obviously I spilled the beans with the Christopher Morel, but there's a couple other nominations there that I think would be very worthy in any other week. But I started the list at least with Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah.
You've got his stats up there?
Yeah, 4 homers, 5 runs, 6 RBI, 1.279 OPS.
Those are essentially identical to the stats we had for last week's 3 nominees for Badass of the Week: Luis Robert, Casey Schmidt, and I'm drawing a blank. Who was the third one?
Who was the third one? Was it Morel last week too?
No. It was Christopher Morel, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had
4 home runs.
Yeah, he had just come up.
Yeah, that's what. Duh.
Yeah.
So in any other week, Seiya Suzuki would be our nominee, which is hilarious because he really is going to get blown out of the water in this.
Yeah, because the aforementioned Christopher Morel has just eye-popping stats. 6 homers. Aren't 5 of them over the last
5 games? He's going for 6-6 tonight. That's why I need to get done with this shit. I've got 10 minutes.
12 runs, 9 RBI, and a 1490 OPS.
For some reason, I just brought up we need to get done so I can watch it. His first at bat might not be until the third inning because he's batting 7th in tonight's lineup, which is
still 7, huh? Yeah.
What are we doing? He was batting 5th, and they dropped him in the order tonight for whatever reason. Of course, the famous Joe Madden quote: "Don't be a lineup-ista." All the lineup-istas out there. My philosophy is your best hitters should get the most opportunities. Put them higher in the order so they get more at bats per game. And Christopher Morel deserves to be at least in the top 5 in this lineup. So
taking the pressure off of him, Smitty.
I guess too much pressure. He's really struggling with that. But almost a 1,500 OPS this week is just insane.
Yeah, I think. This is an addition. You also it's a 264 OPS plus. His stats for this week are Robert's stats for the entire month. Like, 'cause that's his OPS plus and OPS for the month. So
I haven't checked those. Somehow, I basically look at the last 7 days.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. That's it.
And it's like it's almost like Luis Robert got shortchanged somehow this month because he should have been at least twice the badass of the week, but he gets nominated every week. He just not this week, but what Luis Robert has been doing is pretty impressive too, but never quite to this level in 1 week.
Yes, and then after this afternoon's drubbing of the Guardians, Michael Kopech continued his reign of terror on the AL Central with 15 innings pitched, 19 strikeouts, no runs, a total of 3 hits over 15 innings and 1 walk.
It's like he would have had to pitch a perfect game to be our badass of the week almost. I was thinking going at least I think it was through the 4th inning today where he had another perfect game going.
Yeah.
And had through 3 innings, he had 5 strikeouts, which is just ridiculous. He was going to be my nominee, and then he walked a guy, he gave up 2 hits. Can't give it to him, considering what Christopher Morel did. At least we can have that debate, but
I'm not gonna Kopech's throwing great. He's commanding the strike zone again, which is the biggest deal for him. I mean, all those games prior were loaded with walks, but it's against the Royals and the Guardians.
True, that's a caveat I hadn't even really considered, but that's noteworthy.
Yeah, I mean, to quote the great Winston Wolfe, let's not start sucking each other's dicks just yet. And so at the end of the day, I was always all in on Christopher Morel. I mean, especially with the fact that he's hit a home run for 5 days in a row. I mean, it's great. It's a great story. He seems like a cool dude. It looks like they might have a legit superstar in this guy. So, and Suzuki's a nice story too. It was looking a little iffy at the beginning of the year, but I also kind of feel like he's a streaky guy because I felt like last year he'd go on these runs and then table off. But not another good week. But Morel by far is running away with this thing this week.
Suzuki, you got to remember, did not have a spring training. He had that oblique injury that actually kept him out of the World Baseball Classic too. So his whole month of April was his spring training, so that he's starting to figure it out in May makes some sense to me. So just ironic that he would have such a great week and get obliterated in our badass of the week. But I think the only thing I would give Christopher Morel negative points for is he's got the 2 stripes for the tiger whiskers for his eye black. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh God, no.
That seems to be his style. I'm not sure what that signifies, but
I'm not. I kind of have to retract my vote now.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the fancy eye black, but other than that, my God, what a fucking week! Christopher Morel, you got to be our badass of the week.
Incredible, just an incredible performance. All right. Well, I guess that transitions us to your favorite topic, the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, Yours meaning the audience? Certainly not mine, but
I don't know. This is the first week I only got one recommendation for the White Sox from you. Not like usually it's a list of 7 things you need to talk about, but
you guys are far less interesting when you're winning.
yeah, right? Aren't we? But we are 7-3 in our last 10, the only team with a winning 10-game record in the AL Central, and it's great to be in the AL Central because 9 games under 500 means you're only 5.5 games out of first place. So hope remains eternal. And now that we've gotten to only 9 games under 500, 5.5 games out, and over 400 winning percentage, I mean, I think it's time to start talking about who are we going to add to this team to push us over the top. I kid. Things are probably going to get bad in June before they get better, unless this is for real. The Sox have a winning record against the AL Central and pretty much a losing record against everything else. So, luckily, they still have 16 games over this 19-game span remaining with the AL Central or something to that effect, or 16 of the 19 games there are currently in right now. So they played 9 of those. So are against the AL Central. So that should have them be on the winning end of things, hopefully, but they do have the A's in there. And then later on in June, they start up with the AL East again, which is not good.
I was able to tune into the White Sox broadcast this afternoon. I believe it was Benetti that said the White Sox have the 3rd easiest schedule remaining for the rest of the year, which is interesting.
Well, probably because of April.
Yeah.
And that is that ranking. I'm not sure about this. That ranking's a moving target.
It's fluid
right?
because it's
fluid, right?
Takes a look at everyone's record that is ahead of them. They're that on the schedule ahead of them. So the easiest schedule remaining for any team in the major leagues is my Detroit Tigers, believe it or not. So we actually played similar. We played similar schedules in April. It's deviated a bit in May, but so somehow now the Tigers have the easiest road. So I'm not sure that they can take advantage of it. But we will see. But yeah, that's interesting how we're both kind of in similar boats that way.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing for the Sox is they created a 7-20 hole in April. They went 7-20 in the month of April. They are 12-9 in May so far, but there's still a
9 under 500.
Yeah, 9 under 500. 7, like I said, 7-3 in their last 10. Part of the story is, though, the starting pitching's been dominant over the last 76 innings. Their ERA is only 2.31. The bullpen has actually been keeping people in check too. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but this is only the win today against the Guardians is only their 2nd road series win this season, which obviously with a 7-20 record in April is not surprising. So, but with every good news with the White Sox, there's always bad news, and Robert is day to day.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yesterday, he is experiencing some hip pain, which I believe he's had some issues there before. So
yeah, that's what knocked him out. That's what knocked him out last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the a tendon was detached from the hip. I don't think we're there yet. I hope not. But yeah. So we'll see what to make of that.
Didn't need him today.
Yeah, didn't need him today. Eloy and Liam Hendricks are both tentatively scheduled to return for the homestand that starts on May 29th. So that is next week. So we'll see.
Seems fast for Eloy, isn't it? I mean, wasn't it 4 to 6 weeks? 4 to 6 weeks? When was his appendectomy?
Yeah, but he was ahead of schedule and he's been taking batting practice and everything. So we'll see. We'll see if
Makes me nervous
if that happens. So I'm not nervous. I mean, he's going to get injured again anyway. Might as well just get the clock ticking. Maybe
he'll be ticking before his next injury. I see.
Yeah, maybe he'll be around for September then. That's when we're making our push to win the division with 2 game under 500 record.
That's very positive. We're going to get deeper into that. I think this division can be won below 500.
I think you're 100% right.
Wow.
It reminds me of the old years of the AL West when that division was just complete garbage, and there would always be like a team with a losing record going into the fucking playoffs, and you'd be like, what the fuck?
My God.
But that is us this year. And thank God, though, with the way our teams are playing, it at least keeps it somewhat interesting for us.
Yeah. Got something to talk about.
Really, if we were in another division, it would just be so much more doom and gloom. But thankfully, the Sox and the Cubs and the Tigers all play in a division with Central at the end of it, and it keeps everything interesting longer than it probably should be. I'm trying to. Oh, and I guess that that's really all I have for the Sox, other than 2 more things. Is one, we have a premier asshole matchup this weekend starting tomorrow. The Tigers and the White Sox are squaring off for a 4-game series in Detroit.
Oh, I thought you meant specifically there was an asshole on the mound for each of us or something.
No,
you mean just Major League A-holes matchup. I get it.
Yes. What are your thoughts on 2 teams that I kind of think, after watching the Sox lose 3 out of the 4 in Kansas City, then sweeping Kansas City at home, and then play the Guardians, and I kind of feel like every team in the AL Central is almost kind of the same.
Yeah, I think you guys are definitely the hottest team in the division. I think that goes without saying, but Tigers are kind of, they've been, like I said, they've been disappointing this past week, but a week ago I thought they were playing really well. So it doesn't seem to make any difference whether they're at home or on the road. The seems like the White Sox, I thought you were playing better at home, but that might not even be the case. So
yeah, we're only like a game or 2 under at home. We're pathetic on here. I got it here. Home, we are 12-13, road 9-17.
Well,
and that comes after a series win in Cleveland.
Yeah. Cleveland's a mess right now too. I mean, they're playing terrible baseball. It's not just that they're depleted. They're making dumbass mistakes. They struck out a lot today, which they don't typically do. That was strange. I just don't have a feel for this series at all. I certainly don't have a confident feeling for either one of our teams. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow
I could see a split.
I think that would be, I'd be fine with that actually, but I fear the worst. Somehow I feel like you guys have gotten the best of us for several years, mainly because you've had a lot more talent on the field, but we'll have more talent on the field. Whether that comes to actually brings victories for you is the question. So I guess we'll see. It'll be fun to watch. I'll actually be in Chicago. I'm leaving town for the series. I'll be in Chicago this weekend. So I'll be catching the games on TV for sure. You and I need to talk about this weekend if you can hang out at all. I think it's a busy Memorial Day weekend, but might be able to figure this out. Where we can watch
baseball tournament, of course.
Oh, the tournament. I see.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you have a couple more items on your Sox list we should get to.
Well, I have one that you actually sent me. What are your thoughts on Tim Anderson as a shortstop, Smitty?
I think he's a terrible shortstop. I think we've said this for years. I think my opinions will be backed up by the radio broadcaster for the Guardians, Tom Hamilton, as well.
Yes. Tom Hamilton decided to take to the airwaves after Tim did make a costly error. Sox were not hitting well that night anyway. I don't know that it would have mattered. I feel like with the lack of offensive production, they would have lost the game. But essentially, Tim fielded a.
The infield was pulled in. It was
Yeah,
a ground ball.
It wasn't hit hard. It was a play that he was trying to rush and he fumbled it and everyone was safe and it led to 2 runs in the inning and
game-winning runs, but
yeah, 2 game-winning runs in the inning. And Hamilton had this to say: just a routine chop and Anderson booted it. And well, at the end of the day, folks, he's not a very good shortstop defensively. And now Pedro Grifol comes back out, and Dylan Cease is probably saying, replace the shortstop. What did I do wrong?
Wow.
I got a weak chopper with the infield drawn in.
You could argue. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the sabermetrics support Hamilton's statement of Tim currently. I think he's a -2 in
defensive WAR.
Oh, he's -3 above average outs, and I think he's a -2 in some other defensive category as of right now. I mean, so like, but to call him a terrible defensive shortstop is a little bit on the extreme end.
It's kind of an odd thing for a radio broadcaster to do. It wouldn't be odd for like Hawk Harrelson to do, or a known asshole, essentially, a known homer, caustic personality. I'm a little surprised Tom Hamilton would say that. The argument could be made, though. He did say specifically defensively, but Tim is really struggling offensively this year as well.
No, so, he's just struggling.
I looked up a few stats. Like somebody pointed out, over the last 365 days, Tim Anderson has grounded into more double plays than he has any extra base hits. He has 13 double play ground outs and 12 extra base hits. He has no home runs this year. I think he has 6 RBI.
Yep.
He's got like a 57 OPS plus. So in a way, Tom is not incorrect. He's just an asshole for saying he doesn't need to say that. He's preaching to his own constituency, Guardian fans. I guess they all know that. It's just weird. I just can't imagine Benetti saying that, or Len Casper saying something like that. Any of the Tigers broadcasters. It's odd. Again, it wouldn't be odd for somebody like Hawk, but I think it's odd that Tom Hamilton would go there, scorched earth against Tim Anderson. There might be more there though than we know. There's some bitterness over there, I believe.
I mean, it might just be like mentioning Hawk. It could be like a homer move. Like, let me, fans are gonna love this. Our season is sort of shitty right now anyway.
I haven't listened to too many Guardians broadcasts. I'm familiar with Tom Hamilton, but I don't know that he typically says such outlandish things.
I didn't look it up, but I'm almost positive, maybe not last year, maybe it was the year before, we did cover him on something else he blasted someone about. I want to
would have been helpful if you looked at
it. Well, I was
or just didn't bring it up at this point.
Well, I just bring it up.
Nice try.
He's got like a little bit of a history of a homer history, like Hawk.
It's not Tom Brenneman. Make sure you realize it's not.
No, I know it's not Tom Brenneman. Yeah, I know it's Tom Hamilton. Yeah.
All right.
But the funniest part of the story, which was covered in the article you had sent me for Awful Announcing, and the reason Awful Announcing covered it wasn't because they disagreed with Tom's assessment of Tim Anderson, but it was because Tom's own shortstop, Ahmad Rosario, has worse stats than Tim Anderson, and he's not blasted him at all on the air from their coverage of the whole situation. So I think,
probably tells you all you need to know about this.
Yeah, so we were thinking we would make him our asshole of the week for kind of blasting a all-star shortstop when his own team has one who's playing worse defensively. So, especially since again he blasted specifically his defense, not even pulling into the almost like not knowing the fact that he's just having a terrible year.
Yeah.
And having a terrible 75 games now, which date back to when the alleged affair information was posted.
Oh, wow.
So
it's interesting you brought that part up. I was going to bring up the groin injury he had last year. He just hasn't been quite the same. But there's so many different things that happened to him last year.
It was the groin injury, and that groin injury and that story dropped simultaneously.
Was it the same time? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, which led to a lot of jokes about the groin injury.
Well, yeah, things have not gone well for Tim since that, but I still think Tom Hamilton could easily be our asshole of the week for his comments.
Yeah, of course. I was in the nomination, folks, because I fucked with Smitty earlier today and was like, "Who the fuck is Tom Hamilton?"
I then sent you the article,
and then he went on and blasted me for not caring about things outside of Chicago. It was I was very hurt, but I got through it. So
I'm glad you did. Somehow we figured it out.
Yeah, we did.
There's almost no podcast tonight. We were so angry.
Yeah, we were so angry. I finally couldn't let it go on any longer and said I was just being a dick. I know who Tom Hamilton is. So anyway, well, that's it for my White Sox.
I think we might as well transition over to we haven't done one of these in a while, but our former favorite subject, our shit we couldn't make up. Got a couple this week, actually. First one is, are you familiar with the phrase killing two birds with one stone?
I am.
Well, two birds were killed within 1 week in Major League Baseball, which is hard to believe. The last time, it happens. Randy Johnson's the most famous one. That was like 20 years ago where he hit I think it was spring training where he actually hit a bird in flight and it just disintegrated in front of everyone's eyes, horrified eyes. But I don't believe it's happened since then. And within the span of a week, it's happened twice in Major League ballparks. It was in Cleveland, actually, was the last one against the White Sox. I forget the guy who hit a ground ball in the infield and just totally took out a bird that was just chilling out in the grass there. Earlier last week in Arizona, I think it involved the Diamondbacks. Somebody was just playing long toss in the outfield and caught a bird flying by in motion and killed it right there. So I don't know what's going on with the birds now. The animals might be restless, as last night I saw a squirrel jumped up on the wall in Yankee Stadium. I don't know if you saw, there's some hilarious footage.
I did see that.
People reacting horrified in slow motion as a squirrel runs across the top of the wall there. So I don't know what's going on with the animals in Major League Baseball right now, but there is unrest, there is strife, there is death. It's a sad scene right now. So I don't know how we calm this down. That was some shit I couldn't make up. The number one shit we couldn't make up this week, we've already referenced and everyone is very familiar with, but the staggering numbers we haven't talked about yet. But the AL Central the entire AL Central would be in last place in the AL East. In fact, there was only 2 teams outside of the AL Central that would be not in first place in the AL Central at this point. And one of them, I don't even consider a Major League Baseball team. Seattle Mariners would be in second place right now behind the Twins in the Central. And the Oakland A's are the worst, but again, they are not a Major League Baseball team. So there's literally only one team in the American League that wouldn't be in first place in the AL Central. That is just hard to fathom. That's why I guess you and I keep having hope for our mediocre teams. The division race is still right there. My Tigers are in second place, believe it or not, and your White Sox are surging, still 9 games below 500, but within reach of first place. So just an amazing turn of events. Definitely some shit I couldn't make up.
Yeah, that is. I think this is the worst. This has to be the worst this division has ever been. At least in comparison to other divisions in a holistic way.
In those terms, I can't imagine another scenario where the entire division would be below an entire other division, let alone the rest of the league almost. So
yeah, God, no, not last year. Definitely not last year. Yeah, and they were bad last year too. So,
well, that brings me to the non-Major League Baseball team that is my fucking A's. The now 10-40 Oakland A's are, again, not even a Major League Baseball team at this point. They are on pace to win 32 games. They're on pace to go 32-130. That would be worse than the famous 1962 Mets, who went 40-120. It'd be worse than I think it's the 1899 Cleveland Spiders.
The 1899.
Yeah, that's how far back this goes. And these A's are going to obliterate those records. Their negative run differential is the worst by any Major League team in 50. No, I think ever is what the stat is. They're a negative 178 right now. They reached. Yeah, there's so many staggering stats with this. Their team ERA is just under 7 right now. The number 20, last, of course, in Major Leagues, the 29th ranked team, the Cincinnati Reds, is 2 runs better than that at just over 5 ERA, team ERA. So to say they're not competitive is not even doing that justice. They're an abomination, and they really should be kicked out of the league at this point. The scheduling, you can just chalk up a win if you're going to Oakland or facing them. They have 0 one-game losing streaks. They've lost multiple games every time. They have won 2 games in a row once. And it's impossible what they're achieving in the wrong direction. So I keep saying I don't want to even talk about my A's. They're not worthy of it, but somehow I keep bringing them up. Most of the time with the Las Vegas potential move situation. In this case, their historic first 50 games was certainly noteworthy. And maybe when they get to some more ridiculous milestones, I'll bring them up again. I did mention Vegas. There's a tiny bit of news on that. I was joining others a little bit late to the party and writing the obituary of the Oakland A's, just because I was hesitant about how the nature of the details of these the deals that were released didn't sound like they were done deals by any means. I was kind of leaning towards it was a done deal. And now I'm sort of not again, because the rumored $395 million that the Oakland A's were asking for from Las Vegas and the taxpayers of Nevada doesn't sound like Nevada lawmakers are interested in that at all. The number they are throwing out there is $195 million. So they're basically $200 million apart, or Nevada wants to give them half of what they're asking for. So these are not the done deals that anyone assumed. So who knows? There might be more news. There might be nothing. It might be another embarrassing moment in A's history. We'll see, but hopefully we don't have to talk about it much longer.
Yeah, I mean, if somehow this deal falls through, you wonder what they'll do with the team, because you feel like if they move to Oakland, then suddenly they would, open, whatever that means for the Oakland A's as an organization.
Well, they lose all their leverage.
The money, buy some players.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a whole separate issue, but I mean, to figure out the stadium deal, they would have to come crawling back to Oakland at some point if this completely falls apart.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then they get nothing from the city of Oakland and the state of California is not interested in giving massive public funding to any professional team. Yep. I don't see how that plays out in the A's favor. It's like they've completely botched this so often in so many ways. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing on the field, embarrassing off the field. It's just a horrific situation. I can't. It might be the worst in Major League history. Well, I think I'm done with the negativity. I think we should move on. Unless I forgot something. We're moving on to the
you're
final
right on
segment of
schedule.
the evening. All right. This will be our third or fourth aesthetics in a row.
Yeah.
Sound really excited about that. We are moving again to the Nike City Connect collection as the Baltimore Orioles have released their new third jerseys, essentially. An interesting,
Yes.
not different. I don't know, a little bit different take on something we've seen many times. It is an all black uniform once again. That has been the theme. Cincinnati just released last week. They're all black uniforms, black hats, black jerseys, black pants. I think this would be the fourth City Connect uniform in a row with black pants, as the Mariners and the Rangers have that, which are two of the reasons I didn't really like those uniforms as much. But the Orioles, again, right on the heels of the Reds, and maybe I wouldn't react so negatively to this if they had been spaced out a little better. Potentially, they would have been more well received, but these are pretty boring, if you ask me.
Sorry, I'm having a power issue over here. If you're looking at me in the background, I
yeah, you're all right over there.
Yeah, it's all taken care of.
All right.
Yeah, continue. Sorry,
I thought you were digging for props back there or something.
I have an Orioles jersey.
Yeah, I thought maybe you had one there. You loved it so much you had to go out and buy one already.
I felt like anyone who's watching on YouTube or somewhere and like you, I just had to explain what was happening. This whole time I thought my power source was plugged in. I wasn't even paying attention, and it was not. So
this seems to be a reoccurring theme. Maybe we'll do a segment. Is Pete plugged in?
Yes, we should. You should check before the podcast.
Yeah,
starts.
I should. Well, I think you've got the description there. These are always amusing to us as Nike gets very verbose in their descriptions and giving all sorts of meaning to meaningless things. But let's see how they did with the Orioles.
I gotta say too, real quick before we get started, that I gotta agree with you. Like, if ever there's been a phoned in version of a City Connect jersey, like this is the one I would definitely call that. But let's get into it.
Okay.
And I'm going to go through this document that Smitty so graciously sent. It's basically the in order from top to bottom. So the first thing that they start off with explanation wise is the uniform. From the outside, it looks all black and white. You can't see what you're not looking for. Threaded from the artistic tapestry of our city, the pellet is like our people. Colorful, vibrant, and quirky.
Okay. See, it's an all black uniform, but there are colors that are like underneath, like inside the jersey, like a weird, like they said, a tapestry, which is a weird thing to do because I don't think you'll even see it necessarily on the field.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just going to look like a big black and white uniform.
Yeah, this goes back to my, like, they have been putting these little touches that are like inside the collar and things like that. Like, I guess that's great if you own the jersey and you're putting it on.
Yeah,
but for presentation to the people, like in a game, no one's gonna know this.
Yeah,
and this is a city of firsts. If you know our history, then you know Baltimore has pioneered many of America's finest inventors. Oh. So it comes as no surprise, or inventions, excuse me. So it comes as no surprise. We are the first MLB team to design the inside of our jersey. So that's so they don't want to put this like rainbowish color palette on the outside of the jersey because they know they probably wouldn't sell any. So inside the jersey, where no one can see it during a game, is a vibrant color palette.
Yeah, I'm again, we're not familiar with the history. We're not from Baltimore, but again, this is not meant for us, two middle-aged white dudes. So it might work in the city itself. We're not
Yes.
tuned into that, what that culture is looking for in a Nike City Connect uniform, but it just sounds very convoluted and underwhelming to me.
Yes. Up next, neighborhoods. The pattern is a representation, and this is referencing again this color pattern that no one will see when the Orioles are playing the game.
I would describe this color pattern as like a pile of confetti almost.
Yeah, it does.
Like
it does kind of have that.
It's like a bunch of odd shapes stacked on top of each other, all different colors. So just imagine some confetti piled up.
Yes, the pattern is a representation of the neighborhoods that shape our city. The grayscale exterior represents the surface level view people have of Baltimore. Look deeper, and you'll find the colorful interior that highlights the vibrancy of the city, which basically is repeating what they said in the opening paragraph.
Sure. That's that level of meaning that's great. I mean, that's fine. It's a plain black and white jersey with some crazy shit underneath. This is what they're going for.
Yes. Across the chest, Baltimore stretches fearlessly across the front of the jersey. There's no fear in those words, in those letters.
Yeah. Did they get into the font itself, the letterpress?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, it does. The bold typeface is inspired by the Globe Collection and Press at Maryland Institute College of Art and our homegrown art scene.
Yeah, the example I saw it's kind of the famous turn of the century boxing posters.
Yeah,
you've seen it's that kind of typeface. One cool thing I noticed, if you zoom into the details, it looks like it was printed on there. It looks like it was printed in ink because there's some distress, there's some imperfections, some distress marks, which I always think is cool, and I don't think we've seen in a jersey necessarily. So that part I think is kind of cool, but that is because I'm a graphic designer. I love typography. I don't think most people would even notice that shit, but I guess that's one positive note.
Now we move on to the script B, pulled from the Baltimore script logo on our road jersey.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
The love we have for our city.
See, I didn't even notice they didn't have a hat that had a B logo on it. They have, of course, the cartoon bird, and then they have the O's, O''S, I believe. And I didn't realize they didn't actually have a hat with a B. So I think it's cool they finally did it. But of course, it's a black hat with a white B. So it didn't strike me right away as being pulled from their jersey logo. It just looks like a stylized B, and it doesn't really bring to mind Baltimore. Perhaps if it was orange, maybe that would look too much like a typical Orioles hat, but it would seem to make sense to me.
Only one more to go, thank God. Because this jersey just kind of blows. You can't clip these wings. That's on the jock tag. That's right. Did I get it right this week?
You did get it right. Yeah.
Jock tag.
Yeah, that's where they put corny phrases. This one's fine. I mean, it makes sense with the Orioles. I think that's a phrase they probably used for years. But to your point, this is part of the jersey that's tucked in. You'll never see it unless you're wearing it out in public and buy your own.
Yeah, right.
It's not part of the overall aesthetic on the field. So,
yeah, this is originally penned by Baltimore-based poet and author. God.
That's fine. It doesn't
matter. Well, his last name is Fidel. His first name is Kondawandi or something.
Well, I think everyone does
these wings.
I think everyone does know that Baltimore is famous for its poets and writers. So that's something that makes sense in a more global aspect than local. But I don't know. I'm underwhelmed by these. Are we ready to give our grades here?
Oh yeah, should we rate this disaster? And I think you know what mine's going to be.
Yeah, I think we're going to give these 2 middle fingers down each. I think they're boring. I think it would have been a little more well received if they hadn't come on the heels of Cincinnati's all black, which I think were pretty good the way they executed those. But to see just yet another team go so right on the heels of that with the all black uniforms is just kind of not creative and kind of boring. Sorry, Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think there's only one more of these Nike City Connect releases this year. It said sometime in June. I forget who it's going to be, but we'll be sure to break that down the moment it comes out for you, as everyone is breathlessly awaiting our opinions on these.
Let's hope it's next week.
Yeah. Well, we can get it out of the way, and then it's no longer talked about for the rest of the season.
Yes.
So
there you go.
All right. Well, I think with that, we can wrap up this episode number 125 of In the Hole, episode 27 of Socks Type Thing. Unless we forgot anything else.
Nope.
All right. I can get to watch my Tigers. I think the Tigers are delayed. It looks like they're in a warm up right now. So I didn't miss any of my Tigers. Cubs were 0-0 with the Mets, but
thank goodness.
You can find us on social media. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, I've kind of updated things. We've got our Twitter handles. Pete is over there on Twitter at Socks Type Thing. I'm at Major League A-Holes. We are on the web at sockstypething.com and majorleagueaholes.com, as well as ASSTHETICS.shop, ASSTHETICS.shop.
Yeah, buy something.
You can find us on YouTube, and you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I think we can declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.